for our open house. Thank you, Carrie Ann. This session is being recorded today. A link of the video will be circulated to our mailing list and posted on our website. On behalf of the Community Forest today, we have David King, our board chair, Kathleen Suddies, director, and Warren Hansen, our operations manager. They will make a presentation taking approximately 30 minutes. If you have a question during the presentation, please type it into the Q&A at the bottom of your screen. After the presentation, we will have a question and answer period where we will respond to the written questions and invite anyone who wishes to ask questions and make comments verbally. And with that, I give you David King, our board chair.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you all for joining and participating. On behalf of the Board of Directors, I'd like to thank you for attending today and being available to hear and view our community forest operating plan for the next that we're presenting today, which will indicate to everyone what we hope to accomplish in the next 5 years. This is a draft plan and is subject to change, and that's why we were having these public consultations. And on behalf of the board, I would like to, and staff, I would like to acknowledge and appreciate living and operating on the unceded homeland of the Sechelt Nation. Without further ado, Warren. This is what we hope to present to you today and obtain feedback. We're going to try and explain what a community forest is, getting to yes in the forestry and steps to our success, environmental inventories of our tenure, the community stewardship values and what does it mean, the ecosystem management and how we intend to proceed, the operations plan, which this is what we're presenting. What is it, why and how will it work? Public review and comment, which is what we're hoping to achieve by this process and get it at the end of this discussion. Map overview of our tenure and the areas that we intend to work over the next 5 years. Block tables and how to interpret them, which Warren will give you a deal of more detail. And finally, questions and answers at the end of this presentation, as Sarah has explained. With that, I will turn this over to Kathleen to carry on with the next slides. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you very much for being here. It's really important to us that that you're here and that you can share this operations plan presentation with us. So the Sunshine Coast Community Forest, we have a mission statement, which is in fact creating a legacy for our citizens by being exceptional stewards of our forest while balancing the environmental, economic, and social aspirations of the community. Mission statement, of course, is something that we want to, we aspire to, and it's where we want to be, and it's where we want to be going. A little background, the community forest was established in 2007. All of our tenure is all Crown land, which had been previously managed by Canfor and Interfor. It's owned by the District of Sechelt, so local government ownership. The community forest has a volunteer board of directors, a staff of 2, and we also engage many local contractors and other professionals. All of the directors are volunteers from our communities, and we all bring diverse skills and experience that is intended to help shape the community forest strategies as we move forward. Profits are distributed to communities via the Legacy Fund grant and or through the District of Sechelt. And we are legislated to harvest 20,000 cubic meters per year. The next slide that we're going to see is in context. You'll see our tenure areas for us here on the Lower Sunshine Coast. And we, at this foot of a 5,000 foot level, they're referred to as Half Moon Bay, Angus Burnett, and Wilson Creek. And at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Warren now, and he's going to get into some of the more technical stuff and sort of where we're heading with our operations plan. So thank you. Warren, go ahead.
Yeah, so thank you, Kathleen, and thank you for everyone joining us at our open house today. Today, I just wanted to frame our presentation and talk about the tree we plant today will solve our problems to tomorrow. And talk about, just wanted to, in part of the framing of this tree, framing our presentation is this little tree and its role in community expectations and balancing of values and forest uses and getting to consensus in community forestry. So this tree here was planted about a month ago in one of our blocks above the Dusty Road and the landfill. But this tree will experience 5 generations of our community, 20 rotations of government, and several community forest managers like me. And during this tree's lifetime, humans will place many expectations on this little tree's future, from solving climate change and carbon storage issue, to restoring biodiversity and the old growth balance, also to supply our jobs in our community and help pay for our education, roads, and national debt. We as humans put so many aspirations on this tree, it really isn't fair. With so many values to manage, realistic or unrealistic, forestry managers manage community values sometimes feel like this poor old Styphius in Greek mythology. And this story is told that Hades made Styphius roll a huge boulder endlessly up a hill. This enchanted boulder would roll away before he reached the top, which ended up consigning Styphius to eternity of useless efforts and unending frustration. So we must find a balance. And community values are always changing over time. And finding that balance is easily said, but difficult to achieve in practice. In our community, we have a broad spectrum of values to balance, including 3 major themes: environment, community needs, and provincial requirements. On the environment side, we have wildlife, rare plant communities, terrain stability, and fish habitat, and amongst many other environmental values. Community needs, we must include our First Nations partners for cultural use. We also disperse legacy funds to the community. We also have jobs that we create through our everyday practice, and recreation and access to nature are other values that we also manage for. And the province, of course, have their hand out for funding our infrastructure, as well as they provide the rules and regulations in which we have to abide by. So unlike Styphius, moving forward, rolling the boulder and have it roll back down, we'll be reaching for an outcome where everyone agrees in forestry and successfully achieves balance of community values. Yes, it'll be frustrating, but it'll be far from useless and pointless. So the community forest is in order for us to find this balance of community values, is really just a journey of relationship building, and we all must lend a helping hand to ensure our success. And the community forest is moving forward with a new management approach, which will be a paradigm shift from primarily an industrial model of maximizing timber extraction and profits to that of understanding our ecosystems, its living things, including humans, in all our interactions within the environment. As stewards of our forests, we have the responsibility to ensure that our ecosystems, our forests, are resilient to the ever-growing concern of climate change, but acting in the balance and harmony with our community's needs and aspirations. We feel that ecosystem management is a pathway to get us there. First of all, we need to understand our forests in a better light to make the right decisions. We need to understand the ecosystem relationship, our biodiversity needs, and where plant species and endangered species and community at risk are at risk, and how we can build ecosystem resiliency. We're embarking on new inventories, which will gather this information to make decisions on protecting endangered ecosystems, providing future old growth, and providing for wildlife habitat. And along with ecosystem management, we need to protect and plan for future non-timbered opportunities. The SCCF is recognizes many community values within our forest management areas. Through previous stakeholder engagements, initiatives such as the World Cafes and telephone surveys, we have also provided planning areas that show the community of areas being managed specifically for alternative uses, values, and concern mitigation. These stewardship areas for management considerations are long-term deferrals, such as old growth, riparian reserves, habitat protection, and old growth are an example of some long-term community stewardship values. There's also short-term community stewardship values, such as maintaining visual quality around the seashell area, as well as providing for future timber products that will be available for a community to use in a couple of rotations. We have done this, and we expect to do more to ensure our value is protected within our future generations. Other community stewardship values is also how do we manage recreation, provide for opportunities for mushroom foraging, provide for water quality. As we know, we have a couple of major watersheds within our community forests that our community has seen as a very, but they highly value water on the Sunshine Coast. We also have to ensure that our community is resilient to wildfires. We don't have to look very far to understand how wildfires can devastate our forests. In 2015, around the Fair Lake area as an example. So once we understand the ecosystems, apply our community stewardship values, then we can apply how we're going to execute our plan. And it's taken 15 years of operations to get to this paradigm shift. And after the World Cafe and comments and telephone surveys, we've heard you, but we still have a long way to go. Our CFOP is a draft plan, and it's a living document that can be changed to reflect our community values now and in the future. And I'll give you to Kathleen, and she can explain some of the operations plans. So.
Unmute. There we go. Thank you, Warren. So the operations plan, what is our operations plan? As both Warren and Dave have mentioned, it is draft. It's a draft plan put forward so that we can generate feedback from you, our community, and get your ideas, get your opinions, get your assessments, get your approvals, your disapprovals. You know, if you like it, we need to hear from you. If you don't like it, we need to hear from you. If you've got, some fabulous additional ideas, we want to hear, and that's really it's very important for us moving forward. But the operations plan, it is voluntary. It is not required by any legislative act. So it's something that we want to put out in order to generate dialogue with community. And by that, it's a communications process. It would be and will be in an annual community collaboration. So we have, for example, our open house, our AGM, we have our website that we put things up on. So it will be an annual access point for this operations plan. We present to local government, we present to local community associations and recreation groups. And so this operations plan also contains maps, a block table, which Warren's going to explain in detail a little bit further on, and of course the actual document in its entirety. And then the next slide is going to talk about some of our new concepts which we've been introduced, and we're really very excited about this. We're very excited. We're happy to be able to present this. So we're looking at ecosystem management, better public engagement, variable retention, biosolid strategies, community stewardship values, old growth recruitment strategies, best management plans or guidelines, and something that's we're not able to deal with yet, but it's on the horizon for us. We want to see it on the table, and that would be a future look at being able to do carbon offset strategy, which is, I think, a pretty big deal. And then we have sort of a cycle of public outreach with regard to this, this draft document or the operations plan. So initially we have our draft document. So that's the operations plan, 5-year plan. We do a public release. It goes up on the website for everybody to view. And we also have a feedback form, which allows you to interact with us on that. Interviews and individual engagement. And again, we present to local governments, we present to community associations, and of course, we present to the Sechelt Nation. And we're in constant and active communication with them on a regular basis. And they're very much a part of what we're trying to reach as well. We have a public review timeframe. So we have the 60-day window for public comment. And then what we'll do is we actually have the April 15th of this year, it went up on the website. Of course, today we have our virtual open house. We'll have presentations and interviews. And then June 15th, we've asked to be our public comment deadline so that we can gather up everybody's comments and opinions and relevant feedback and put it all together. And then we can look at how that can apply to the operations plan as a whole. We can look at a summary of changes, and then ideally we'll be looking at a June 30th board approval of the operations plan. So that would be our public review timeframe. And then of course the operations plan has map overviews. And at this point here, I'm going to pass this back over to Warren because he's the technical guy on this. Oh, actually, one more thing before I give it to Warren. Again, this is our 5,000-foot look at our map. So the black dotted line describes our entire tenure area. So that's community forest tenure area. And you can see that now in the context of the Sunshine Coast. The blue patches within those black dotted lines indicate the community forest blocks that are up for consideration or proposal over the next 5 years. So all of those little blue patches, that would be over the next 5 years as we move forward in our operations plan. And then the solid green line, that indicates BC Timber Sales land. And that's currently it's in postponement until the Sechelt land use plan is complete. So that just gives you an idea of relative context where everybody's sort of positioned at this point in the game here. So on that note, then I'm going to pass it over to Warren to talk about a detailed block map.
So yeah, so thank you, Kathleen. There's 4 maps on the that we have on the operations plan. One of these areas, I picked a screenshot of an area around Trout Lake. This includes a couple of cup blocks that are being proposed for this year and next year, and then some other cup blocks that are in the Crowson Lake, Wakefield Creek area. But I really wanted just to highlight the kind of values and the sort of busyness of the things that we would consider moving forward. So first of all, we have our stewardship areas, and this is how it will integrate. We have wildlife habitat areas such as just above Crowston Lake is a proposed marble murrelet area. We have deferred areas for harvest for continued mushroom foraging in and around one of our cup blocks. We also have an area that we'll be managing for recreation, and this is around the Crowston Lake area that's highly used by campers and people that go and walk in the area. And also we have areas already set aside for old growth recruitment in and around the Wakefield Creek area and around one of our cup blocks, HM70 and HM70A. And then of course we will plan to, these are the cup blocks that are integrated within our stewardship areas and within our tenure. So that's just kind of like an example of the values and how we would like to identify how and what and where we're be operating and what other values that we're considering. I also, the community forest operating plan also has block tables, and it's a very busy, there's a lot of information on these block tables, but it does tell a story. And this story it highlights the name of the blocks, when the block is applied to an operating plan, and the operating plans by year. And when these blocks were, if it was some of these earlier blocks maybe had been proposed earlier, in like this, an example, HM50 here was on an operating plan in 2018. And then when our planned harvest date would occur, and then the block status. And the block status is a set of gates. And when a block is proposed on the plan for the first time, it's considered proposed. It's a block, it's just as a map. And this is the area that we would like to go into, and really where we would like to start our community engagement process from. As the block goes through different gates, we have an example, HM50, it's engineered. And eventually, and by being called an engineered, means that there's flagging in the field, assessments have been complete, there has been, could be geotech concerns, there could be archaeological assessments, species at risk assessments, visual assessments. There's a fair number of assessments that need to happen prior to us submitting it for cutting permit. And then moving forward on parts of the other table, as exactly where is this block located? We've been criticized in the past of having operating areas, but not really telling people exactly where, and we've done so. We've said in one of the blocks, for example, it's in their Half Moon Bay operating area, but it's near Trout Lake. We have another one that's in East Wilson, but it's in the lower reaches of Chapman Creek. So that just kind of tells you and zeroes in on any concerned community member that may want to have input into our plan. As we work our way across, we have age classes, and age class is something that is a bit of a hard to explain, but it's all in 20-year age classes. As the blocks get older, the age classes get a wider bandwidth. So an example of one of the blocks that we have on our plan is HM50. It's age class 5, and it's between 100 and 120 years old. And then I just want to note that age class 9 is traditionally what we call the old growth, and community forest has a policy of not logging any old growth within our tenure, and have identified this as a community stewardship value that we'll have long-term deferrals on. And also to some, the estimated net area and the estimated volume. In a lot of cases, you'll see that the gross volume equals the net. And really that's what it is that it doesn't include any of the functional requirements that we're required to set aside. So wildlife habitat areas, retention areas, there's buffers for lakes and streams and wetlands. And so those don't reflect, as it moves through the gate, you'll see HM50 is almost 20 hectares, but half of it's being retained for a net area of 10 hectares. So there's a lot of planning, a lot of consideration going on from when it gets proposed to when we submit for a cutting permit. So that's it. Our draft community plan is available on our website, and the link is provided. If you can go to our website and then click through the links as well. We also have 2 hard copies available at the C. Shelton Gibson's libraries. As well, we ask you to please use our feedback form and give us your comments and concerns. And also within that form, you can request a further interview where we would schedule, Sarah and I will schedule an interview, and we can discuss our plan in much more detail as needed. So thank you.
Thank you, Warren, and thank you, Kathleen. We again look forward to your comments and contributions and questions. And please go to our website if you want some additional information. As well, we have a Facebook page, which seems to be a thing of great value these days for all age groups. And we look forward to moving our 5-year plan forward and hearing from all participating parties, and as well as the nation of Seychelles, which we work closely with because we're on their unceded territory. I'm going to turn this over to Sarah now, who will provide some direction on the question and answer portion of this presentation. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you, David. So it looks like we've only received one written answer, which I already responded to. It was to do with if they can call and send mail for people who are not connected to the internet. If anyone would like to ask a question, they can type it into the Q&A or raise their hand. We will ask questions in the order that hands are raised. If you want to ask a question with your mic, once you've raised your hand, please make sure you unmute yourself, and to be respectful of everyone's time, we'll only answer a question once. So if your question's already been answered, please don't ask it again. Thank you. Okay, so we'll start first with a question from Ross regarding visual quality objectives. We now see a fresh cut block in the Angus Creek seen from downtown Seychelles. Will we see more cut blocks from main viewing points coming up soon?
So I'll answer that. The answer is actually yes. I mean, for the requirement, we meet the provincial standard for visual quality. And in this case, the government has said that these cut blocks are easy to see and small in scale. So what we end up doing is actually being a lot less than that, and that's what's required. And our plan is to make sure that the blocks, we're not trying to hide the blocks, but we're doing it in a way that we do the design that's not taken away from the natural appeal of the hillside. So, you know, there's a lot of other things going on that hillside, including, you know, urban logging, you know, housing development and other things like that, that does factor into doing cut block design. So, yeah, I don't know if that's satisfied your question. A bit more technical, but you know, like I said, we do assessments from and our assessments are legal, and we require to meet a certain standard before we submit for cutting permit.
Thank you, Warren. We have another question from Paul. Can you, Warren, speak a little more to the BCTS, that's BC Timber Sales overlap area in Wilson Creek?
Yeah, so the actual, there is no overlap. There's an overlap of interest around that area, and that was what we were trying to highlight, that the BC Timber Sales is east of Wilson Creek, and our community forest is on the west. But yeah, we share the same. We collaborate and share the same issues in that area.
Okay, another question probably for Warren from Kevin. How much old growth exists now within the community forest?
Not a lot. honestly. We're somewhere between and actually, you know what, it depends on where you are, where you stand. We have a lot of old growth that's within the high elevation areas. And we have not a lot of old growth that are in the low elevation areas. So that's important distinction to understand. The reason for that is a few reasons, but mostly historic logging, as you know, as everybody can understand. The the settlements from the Sunshine Coast and Vancouver Island happen a lot earlier than other places up island or up the mid coast, and also fire history, and very important event that happens and lower, you know, so those two things combined, it doesn't have a lot of old growth, and we're talking age class 9 in a lot of cases. So the areas of there was a large fire back in the 1880s in the Roberts Creek area, as well as other fire events that's happened in Half Moon Bay, and it's a very interesting history, but this is one of the reasons why we don't have a lot of old growth. We do have a lot of fir vets that survived the fire, and a lot of areas, large cedar stands around wetlands and streams, of course, because it'll be wetter, and the fire was, you know, weren't able to weren't able to kill off those trees. But as a matter of course, we do leave a lot of those for those veteran trees, as we call them, standing. That's a policy of ours. Thank you.
Okay. Another question from Ross. Will you undertake a terrain stability assessment in HM70 on the steep slope section? What is your reading on the slope degree? He observed 50%.
So it is a function requirement that we have a terrain stability assessment done on, and that block in particular has had one done back in 2019. So we have we've engaged a professional, a geotech engineer that came from Vancouver and the Fraser Valley, and so we designed our cut block based on that assessment. For the most part, actually, we're going to be removing some of that area because it overlaps with some of the other ecosystem management type of stuff that we're trying to do. So you know, we're looking at you know, seral stages, you know, and then the amount of fir vets in the area, and then if ways that we can anchor our retention patches for ecosystem management, then that's some of the things that we're considering. So thanks.
A question from Kevin. How much of the tenure is in the 140 to 250-year-old trees in percent terms, if you can?
I don't have that answer at our fingertips. And you know, that's an exercise that we can embark on. But we're talking H class 7, and so H class 7 and 8. So I'll tell you a few things. The nation's asked us to consider setting aside H class 8s under 600 meters. We're looking at doing that and facilitating that. We are concentrating on younger age classes, younger age strands, and you know, but trying to be responsible as much as we can. So you know, a lot of these areas, you know, aren't old growth. they're mature timber, and that we plan to set a lot aside, honestly, as old growth recruitment. So there will be a requirement in the future for making sure that our bioclimatic zones, these are sort of a high technical part of the classification, to make sure that we have 10% represented as old growth and as old growth recruitment up to 10%. And we think that we can make that through different things. And don't forget, we're a small part of landscape plan areas, right? There's also Interfor and the Chapman Creek Landscape Unit, also as BC Timber Sales, and we all have to contribute to that. Same with the Seashell Landscape Unit. We only represent 1% actually of the area of that kind of mature timber. So I think when government has accepted, and we were probably leading to this, and the government has accepted the recommendations of the old growth panel, but they have no implementation execution strategy around it. So there's no policies, no nothing, and so we're taking a proactive step to ensure that we can meet that 10% in bioclimatic zones. And so our stewardship areas will reflect that as we move forward in our planning. But we need to know, and this is why we're doing sort of species at risk inventories, plant communities, and other things like that. We need to know what are the best areas that we can set aside.
Thank you, Warren. Here's one that maybe David King could speak to, and I don't know if you'll have anything to add to it, Warren. Ross asks about the Green Line, where BCTS has deferred logging, but we have proposed 3 blocks in the East Wilson area. Why did we not also respect the deferral process, and will we cancel them?
I would defer that to Warren. I'm not sure of the answer to that. Sorry, Sarah, but
Sure,
Warren,
okay.
perhaps you could answer it better than I.
So the Green Line represents an initiative by a citizen group to set aside timber, linking the 3 different Alpenstone parks. And this process has been happening for a while. In 2018, the government has ruled at the time that they weren't interested in other parks, as well as the Squamish Nation verbally has said that no more parks. And obviously, community values change, and other things like that. We respect the land use plan, the modernized land use plan of the nation, and something that if you look at those blocks, they're at the end of our plan, and this allows for better community collaboration and better community engagement in order for us to plan forward. I think that's really where we really need to go as a stepping stone to yes, we do have timber interests in the area, but how we go about what it's going to look like, how it's going to happen, and whatnot, we really want the community to be involved.
If I could just add to that, sorry to interrupt, Warren, that we are quite aware of the contentious issues around those areas, and the legislation is changing all the time on that, as well as we're working with the band in their land use area and review. And that's why that tenure is 4 years down the road as far as our plan to cut. So.
Thank you. So T. Maynard has said, thank you for taking the time for this public consultation. What are some options for improving accuracy of the timber inventory in the short and long term? Can you explain the challenge highlighted in the draft guidelines?
No, it's a good question, honestly. We struggle with that. This timber inventory was given to us by the provincial government. We've been struggling to make sure that this accuracy is improved. We originally did 2012, we did extra plots in our community forest in order to facilitate parts of, to facilitate age classes and other things like that. The improvements that we plan to make include a full-on terrain ecosystem model that we have Madrone Environmental looking after. And the idea there is that to really understand not only our timber inventory, but look at the ecosystems as well. And that's going to integrate both this vegetation resource inventory that you're probably referring to our where are the species at risk, where are the endangered ecosystems, where a bunch of other things that I've asked them to look for. As a compendium to that, it'll trickle down to the block level. So we'll have a course filter, and then we'll have a block assessment afterwards during when we do our planning. And that is one of the few operations that actually are going to do this. And this is sort of front leading, and I'm pretty excited to be able to do something like this with the community forest. So we're working on it.
Thank you. Where does the community forest stand on extending the Elphinstone Provincial Park and connecting the separate areas as they are now? From Roberta.
Roberta, it's Dave King answering. We don't have any control of that, and so we leave those decisions up to the provincial government, and they have already made some comments on that, as well as, again, we are awaiting the Seashell Band land plan use and working with them on moving forward.
Thank you, David. Elaine says, it appears that blocks EW18A and B and EW19 will alienate a small park on Mount Elphinstone from human access, hikers, and bikers. What will the community forest do to remediate this?
Warren?
A couple of, I'd like to talk a couple of things. So EW18 is south of the westernmost park. EW19 is to the north of this park. So EW19 was presented to us by the research branch of Ministry of Forests. And as people know, they've been doing different types of harvest studies, extended rotation, strips, selective, a couple of other things, and they've asked us that, is there an area that we can practice to do our research on, and so we put it in there, and I'm not sure how committed they are with it. It's something that it's definitely at the backside of the plan. But it's not something that we're being force fed with it. We would like community engagement, and to be able to make sure that our community is able to be engaged and being able to have influence on planning and what it's going to look like and how it's going to be done for both blocks, EW18 and EW19. So I think it's my hope that this conversation doesn't end, and that that we can come up with something that that meets both the community's needs as well as helping us fulfill our mandate.
Elaine, in keeping with that, we already have in all of our blocks in most of our areas, we have hiking and biking trails that are going through our tenure, and we do everything within reason when we move into an area and do the assessment, the environmental study, as well as the engineering, to ensure that those trails and hiking paths are maintained, and we normally leave some area beside there that's not part of the actual cutting in the blocks, and we may have to restrict access for a small period of time if there's work being done in that area for this everybody's safety. But we as a part of our mandate, we encourage trails and hiking and the use of our areas for public use, and we intend to maintain and continue to do that in the future.
Thank you, David. Question from Trevor. Warren, you mentioned managing for rare plant communities. Are these species at risk listed or on the BC CDC listed, and what are they? Thank you.
So good question, Trevor. One of they are looking at both the federal listed species, the Species at Risk Act, and then they're also looking at the BDC CDC listed plant communities as well. So if it's red endangered, that's something that we are considering for sure, and then some of the blue listed species to make sure there's a representative amount of ecosystems being set aside and managed.
Okay, we have another question from an anonymous attendee. Our mission statement calls for exceptional forest management. Can you give us examples of this from previous operations?
I can speak a little bit to this. I can't really speak to previous operations, but I believe that the community forest is meant to be a part of the community, and we don't go and do things just for profit. We do it for many factors, environmental and ecosystems and things that Warren explained earlier, taking into consideration everything that we can. We don't just go and do it to increase profits as a private company would. And that's why we are able to manage our forests and manage the product that the forest produces for us in a better manner than if we were possibly still under the tenure of private logging companies that would just clear cut at will just for bottom line profit. And maybe you can add to that, Warren.
Yeah, I mean, I come from a perspective that I used to be working for Canfor at one time, and a lot of the, there's a lot of different expectations when it comes to managing as part of a private firm. We've in the past we've done several different initiatives that to help our community in both providing investment back into our forest, which is like we've helped build a couple of trails around Bear Lake now, and in trying to really enhance our community's values. And not all communities value the same thing. How does our access to roads, our roads, we're investing more in our roads. We're investing more in recreational areas. We're investing in more, some understanding our forest better. So I think it's about a balancing of the different values to be able to come up with what really is the community in community forest. And I think that's the it's not something that comes flowing out of a forest professional that works for another forest company.
Thank you, Warren. Kim is asking, have you considered ecoforest models encompassing more selective logging similar to the Lübeck community forest in Germany? This appears to result in higher quality wood, less AAC or allowable annual cut with more board foot of product and an increase in jobs. Seems like a win-win.
So thank you, Kim. Thank you for attending our open house. That's awesome. You did send us some information around some of these examples in Japan as well as in Germany, and it's something that you know, we would take a serious look at. I'm not afraid to try something different and almost pride ourselves into being able to do something different. The government does give us a lot of leeway in order to do these sort of things. So you know, it's something that we can try as a pilot project. You know, I've come from a 30-year career of you know, harvesting, or you know, planting, harvesting, and growing our forests. And in a lot of cases, not all management can be applied to every area. So I think that, you know, we need to take the wins from different places being practiced in our community, as well as regionally, provincially, and globally, and to be able to apply it. And this is what, you know, this ecosystem based management can help us kind of get there, to sort of open the ideas and be creative and being able to try to manage our force from a stand level, from a very narrowly focused level. Just as a side, I could probably talk about this and take everybody's air in the room, but what traditional forestry looks at is more of a landscape level. So if we're providing for old growth, we're providing it in areas and patches and different areas, but not specifically right at this, you know, within this 10 square meters of this block. So but we need to kind of look at it that level in order to understand, because that's where the ecosystems are happening. And I think that if we can try to do it in a way that we can meet the needs of our government and meet the needs of our community within one in that cut block, I think we can succeed. So it's a bit motherhoody, but yeah. Anyway, thanks.
Thank you, Warren. We have a question from Kevin. Are you going to respect the Roberts Creek official community plan objectives for the expansion of the Elphinstone Provincial Park?
Board.
I think that might be a board response.
Yeah, I'm sorry. My apologies. We respect all of the OCPs in the tenure that we work in. Now, with regard to the expansion of the Elphinstone Provincial Park, that is outside of our area of responsibility. That's a provincial jurisdiction, and if the provincial government mandates that they will expand the park, then we would be obligated to abide by their decisions. And so, but for now, we haven't been given any mandate to do that. So we respect the existing boundaries of the Elphinstone Provincial Park.
Thank you, David. Ross asks, the CFOP states that we only harvest what we can grow sustainably. Is that not a bit of public relations, cutting 100 to 120-year-old trees with large intact volume is quite different than the volume being put on a 2-inch seedling.
Warren? I'll let you answer to that. It's a little obscure.
Maybe Warren's getting just a little bit tired, but the intent of the language is that we have a large tenure area and every tree in that tenure area grows in volume every year. So, we have a volume of trees that continually increases, and the amount that we take out of that every year is less than that increasing volume. So it's not about on a tree for tree basis. Obviously, you cut down a tree and you plant a seedling. Yes, they're not the same volume, but the community forest as a whole, on average, maintains or increases its age over time. That's what the annual allowable cut is based on.
Yeah, I
Great.
agree.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you,
So
Sarah.
So a question from an anonymous attendee. Can you expand on what the community forest does to support trails in its tenure area?
That's a good one. What we find, actually, I represent a mountain bike association, but supporting trails just in general is a real tough one. It's a volunteer run, typically it's a volunteer run. Volunteers maintain trails, volunteers build trails, they replace bridges. And so for the most part, most of what you see in the trails that you see in the backcountry are, well, they're unsanctioned, but they're trails, and that people come and use. And trails in my mind are absolutely something that I really care deeply about. And for us, for the community forest, at least within our tenure, is something that we'll be continuing to support to bridge areas. So we're looking at putting in a trail that will link both the Crowston Lake and the Fair Lake trail systems. That's something that the community forest will be taking the initiative on. And supporting other groups like the Coast Mountain Bike Trail Association and the Dirt Riders Association, as well as the Trail Society, and to help them further their goals. We do the same to support trails for the Hidden Grove areas, and I think it's a real success to collaborate from a forest tenure holder to the volunteer trail network.
Thank you, Warren. And we have a question from Jimmy. Why has there been no action for the World Cafe meeting, such as the walks of upcoming blocks and restarting CFAC, as that was what the people wanted?
So
I think that's a board. Yeah. Okay,
part of what this a whole operating plan is to work with the community as a whole, and perform walks in the woods for our cut blocks, and keep the general community and public more involved and more informed on where our cut blocks are going to be and when they're going to be. And that is part of this process, and we've demonstrated that today. We've shown where the cut blocks are, and we're going to do a better job moving forward in the future of allowing the community to participate in the walk through the cut blocks in advance. And it would be part of our mandate when we're asking for cutting permission, and as well as working with the Sechelt Nation on all of our intended cuts go to them for approval, and we intend to work with the community as a whole to advertise those blocks, and if there is interest in people wanting to do a walk through the cut block, Warren at any time and any staff that would be available with knowledge would be available to take a tour. And this has been discussed at the board level, and it will be happening, and you can look forward to it in the future.
Thank you, David. So we have no more written questions at this time. Would anybody like to speak up and make any comments? Please raise your hand.
If there are no additional questions, I would like to personally, on behalf of the board and the staff, Sarah and Warren, thank you for participating. Thank you for your questions, and thank you for logging on. At one point, we had 40 some odd persons attending, 44, I believe. And that is an indication of the interest in the community forest and the impact that we have on the community. And I think it's very important that we continue this moving forward and listen to your concerns and be able to explain our actions to the community as a whole, because we are all a part of this community, and we all share the interest in the environment and our tenure. And we want to sustain this for our children and great grandchildren and great grandchildren to come. And if we manage our tenure responsibly, then that will be a sustaining feature of the community forest. So if there are no further questions,
We do have
sorry?
another question. Someone really doesn't want to go, so
There's a couple of questions. Sorry.
Yeah, Anonymous has asked, will you consider reinstating the Community Advisory Board?
That is also on the table for discussion, for sure. It came up as a discussion a while ago, and we're moving towards our AGM at the end of the month, and there'll be some new directors, and this whole process that we're undertaking right now, the Community Forest and the Community Advisory Board and Walk in the Woods is part of that discussion at the board level. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Anonymous has said the DeSoto Trail has been completely obliterated and the area around the old car denuded, which I guess is more of a statement than a question, but
Warren, are you familiar with what they're
Yeah,
talking
oh no,
about?
for sure. So yes, you're right. It hasn't, it's now a road, if that's what obliterated is. It is, we use it as a logging road. It was previously a logging road. You need to understand that. So, we're reusing an asset that's already been provided by someone else. But the plan is not a sense of loss. We'll be reconstructing that trail and when we rehabilitate that road. I need the road for planting. It's obviously to facilitate logging, but it will be planting as well as doing our firewood responsibilities. And so we provide firewood to the majority of our we get 100 plus permits for people to take 5 cords of wood out of our blocks. That access provides that opportunity. But we plan to rehabilitate that whole road and make it into a trail. The look and feel of that will be a lot different, obviously, but it'll be reconstructed by a person who's experienced on building these type of trails. And I think we're going to have something that's a lot better than what it was before.
Thank you, Warren. Are there any other questions, Sarah?
What is the long-term plan for harvesting in the Chapman Creek watershed?
Warren, I'll defer that one to you as well. We've had some discussions on that.
Yeah, so there's a deferral, a moratorium on our drinking water and community watershed. We've done several different types of inventories when it comes to the watershed, but we made this declaration in 2011, so 25 years, and then that's a conversation for then. So it's in the back of my mind. I got a lot of other things to work on as well. So, but anyway, thank you for the question.
And I believe, and you can correct me, Warren, that this was a voluntary deferral in the Chapman and Grey Creek watershed areas.
That's right.
So we are very conscious of the environment and the riparian areas along the creeks and watershed areas. And as time moves forward, that even becomes increasingly so. And we're very cognizant of that. And that's why our blocks are engineered so carefully to take into account all of those various things that impact on the environment. Anything else? I don't think there are any more questions. So thank you everyone who attended, and thank you for all the questions. There were some great questions, and we look forward to answering all your questions even into the future. So again, I reiterate on behalf of the board and staff, please, if you in the future, if you have things that you've overlooked in today's presentation, feel free to go on our website or our Facebook page and dialogue with us that way. And you can email or contact the office for in order to speak with Warren or ourselves with regard to anything else that you might have questions on. So again, thank you so much for listening to our Community Forest Operating Plan, the CFOP. We're great for acronyms, and we hope to move this forward and bring it to the board level and take everything into consideration that we've heard through these presentations, and move our operating plan forward into the future. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.